Hello students, this is Abdelkader Ouda. Welcome to ES 1036 video series. In this video, we'll talk about the UML notations that are used for the class design and implementations. Remember, in our rectangle class example, we started by defining the class name, and we defined two fields. So we mentioned the field's name and their types, their data types, and we determined their access modifiers. We defined them as private class member. Because we defined them as private, we defined the accessor and mutator method for them. We also called them getters and setters. And finally, we define a specific method for this class in order to perform on the data and determine the area of the class. And we define this method as public method. The common practice in object-oriented programming is to start by designing the class first and then start the implementation. And we use the UML notation to help us for the design and represent our class diagrams. UML notation stands for the Unified Modeling Language. UML used a rectangle shape in order to represent the classes, not because the class in this example is called rectangle, but in general UML used the rectangle shape to represent a class. And this rectangle shape is divided by three sections. The first section here, we write the class name, and in my example, my class name is called rectangle. And the second section in this shape, we list here all the fields in the class. So in my example, we define two fields. The first one, we name it length. The type of length we defined as double. So for the UML notation, we write the field name first, followed by the data type, and we add colon before the data type. So length with the first field, width with our second field, again we use colon, and then the data type. So the first section represents the class name. The second section represents a list of field names and their type, in addition to their access modifiers. Remember, we defined length and width as private fields. We use the minus sign to represent or to show that these fields are private fields to the class. And since we defined them as private, we also defined the setter and getter to let classes other than rectangle to be able to modify these fields or read their values. So we defined set length, and also we defined set width. And if you remember, we used parameter len, and it was of type double. Notice here the notation, we write the field name first, or the parameter name first, followed by colon, and the type of this argument. Same thing here for the set width. We defined the parameter w, and it was of type double. And set length and set width, they don't return any values, so we define them as void. UML represent this return type by adding here colon, and then we write here void. Same thing for set width, it return void. And also remember, we define these methods as public methods. So we use here plus sign to represent that these methods defined as public methods. So again, we used minus sign to represent the private modifier, and we used plus sign to represent public modifiers. We have other modifiers than private and public, but we're going to talk about this later in the course. We also defined two methods to get the values of these fields. We defined get length, and get length doesn't have any arguments in the methods, and the get length method returns double. And remember, we also defined this method as public, so we're going to write here plus. We defined also get width with no parameters, and it returns double value, and we define it as public method. And also we defined get area. This method performs in this data to determine the area of the rectangle, and again, since we define them as public, we use here plus, and we call it here, this is the name of the method, get area, and also it doesn't need any arguments, and get area return double value. So this is here a complete UML notation that represent a class. It has three sections. The first section in the top, we write the class name. The second section, we list all the fields in the class. The third section, we list all the methods, and the notation start by the accessibility level plus the method name, and list the arguments with their type, and then the return type at the end. Let us take another example. Let us read this class diagram together. From this diagram, we see that this is a class, and the class name is students, and this class defined two fields. The first one name is first name, the second call it last name, and both fields are defined as private because of this minus sign, and the data type are strings. From the third section, we know that this is list of methods, and it's clear that here that we have the setter set first name, set last name. So let us go ahead and convert this diagram to a Java code. Okay, so I'm going to create a new project. I will call it UML example. And here I'm going to create this class. This class, again, the name of the class is student. Again, this is the first part of the diagram. From the diagram, I can see that there is two fields of type string and defined as private. So the first one, private string, and the name is first name. And also the second one, private string, and we call it last name. So from the diagram also we see that we have two setters and two getters. So let us start by implement them. They are defined as public, void, and their name here I have set first name. The first one has first parameter if name of type string, and let us do the second one, also public void, set last name, accept one parameter of type string. So it doesn't mention here the body of this setter, but it makes sense that we need to assign what has been sent to this value to the first name, to the local field first name. So it's just one simple assignment statement. First name equal first name. Same thing here for the last name. Last name equal last name. Good. For the getter, it's also defined as public methods, but here it returns a string, get first name, and we know that we need to return the value of the first name. And the fourth one, the second getter method, also returns a string, and we need to return the last name. The third method here, it's called get full name. Although it's not mentioned here, the purpose for this method, for sure when we have something like this in our exercises, there's going to be some explanation of all of these methods. But for now, I'm going to assume that this method should return the full name, first name followed by the last name. So what I know from the diagram, it should be public, and it should return string, and also the name should be get full name, and no parameters, however, it should return the full name. So I'm going to return here a string started by first name concatenated by a space, one space plus the last name. So this method here return a string of the first name and then space and last name. So this is here direct implementation for this UML class diagram. I hope you find this video informative and helpful. Again, if you have any question, please raise it during our live lectures. Goodbye.